Hi there. Today I'm going to talk about a question that came up recently at a student support team meeting when they were talking about a student with reading challenges. And one of the teachers asked, "Is dyslexia a visual problem?" And I thought it might be good to share some information about this so we can challenge the myth that seems to persist about dyslexia and reading development. So the short answer to this question is that dyslexia is not a visual problem. It's actually a language-based problem. And to understand this, we have to look under the hood. Your brain is wired naturally to speak, but it's not wired naturally to read. Reading is a human invention that it's only about a few thousand years old, and our brains haven't evolved a reading center yet. So to learn to read, the brain has to hack itself. It has to take the visual part, which sees the shapes, lines, and the squiggles, and it has to connect it to the language part on the left side, which handles the sounds and the meaning. So for a typical reader, this connection's like a superhighway. They see the squiggle B, and then their brain instantly maps it to the sound, but bam, it's done. But for a student with dyslexia, that highway is under construction. There's potholes, detours, and sometimes the GPS just gives up. So the problem isn't the eyes at the start of the journey. The problem is the traffic jam in the language center, where the information's supposed to land. The core deficit in dyslexia is usually phonological processing. Phono means sound, and this isn't about hearing acuity. Their ears are usually just fine. It's about the brain's ability to recognize, manipulate, and remember the individual sounds within spoken words. These individual tiny sounds are called phonemes. And here's an example. You see a cat, you say the word cat, your brain effortlessly knows that cat is made of three distinct sounds that are blended together. K, at. A young child with dyslexia often doesn't hear those separate sounds. They just hear one big sound blob, cat. And if you can't pull the sounds apart in speech, then it makes it really difficult to map those sounds onto the letters in a page. But you might ask then, it seems like they have a lot of trouble with reversals, and isn't that a visual problem? Well, it feels visual, but actually it's a retrieval hiccup. If you think about it, a chair is a chair whether it faces left or right. And so our visual brains are wired to ignore orientation so that we can recognize objects. But suddenly, in reading, orientation matters a lot. A B facing one way makes one sound. When it faces the other, it's a D and makes a different sound. So because the dyslexic brain has a weak grasp on the sounds, it struggles to glue the sound onto this specific letter. So when they mix up the B and the D, it's not because they see it backwards. It's because their brain grabbed the wrong label from the messy filing cabinet in the language center. By the way, it's not uncommon for students to reverse letters up until second grade, and students with dyslexia don't just reverse letters, they make more reading errors of many different kinds. So this brings us back to the meeting and the question, when the question came up about, is dyslexia a visual problem, the teacher might have been thinking about different vision exercises or vision therapy, but interventions for vision such as eye tracking exercises, colored lens, and special fonts haven't proven to be effective for dyslexia. Also, major organizations like the American Academy of Pediatrics and the American Academy of Ophthalmology have clearly stated that vision problems do not cause dyslexia, and treating the eyes does not cure it. You could think of it this way. If your car's engine is misfiring, then washing the windshield isn't going to fix it. The view might be clearer, but the car still won't run. So vision therapy works great for actual vision problems, But using it for dyslexia is like trying to fix a phonological problem with a visual solution. It's just the wrong tool for the job. So if that sounds discouraging, it's actually the opposite, because we know that it's a language problem and then we know how to fix it. We don't need eye exercises, but what we do need is explicit, systematic instruction that forces that connection between sounds and letters. So they need a lot of practice and explicit instruction. So you'll hear terms like structured literacy or explicit instruction, and these aren't magic tricks. They're interventions that literally will rewire the brain, building that superhighway brick by brick. I wanted to add this point because it's something I recently learned, and that is that we used to think that phonological awareness activities would be best done like with just auditory exercises, so no written letters. But what we've recently learned that it's much better to pair the written letters or the written words with the auditory exercises or the phonological awareness tasks. It just works better that way. So back to the team meeting, when someone asks, is it a visual problem? You can confidently say no. Their eyes are fine. It's a language processing issue, and we know how to help students with that challenge. Now check your understanding and rewatch the video if you want to review the information. Choose the statements that are true. A, dyslexia is a language-based problem. B, phonological awareness skills are best taught without written letters. C, a reliable sign of dyslexia is when students reverse letters. D, phonological awareness is a core underlying deficit area for students with dyslexia. E, structured literacy and explicit instruction are effective for students with dyslexia. And F, students with dyslexia are likely to benefit from special fonts. Okay, and the answers are, the ones that are true are A, dyslexia is a language-based problem. D, phonological awareness is a core underlying deficit for students with dyslexia. And E, structured literacy and explicit instruction are effective for students with dyslexia. So even if you knew this information, I hope it helped you to feel more confident in responding to the question if it comes up, is dyslexia a visual problem? Let me know what topics you're interested in, and thanks for watching.